No, thank you all for joining us this morning. I think it's important from what we've heard from our network that we really dive into marketing more broadly, but specifically digital marketing, paid media, AR, which I think is going to be new to a lot of us or something that we're still exploring. So I think it's good to dive into that topic, and as always, just a nice, comfortable environment. So although we're going to be doing talks, feel free to jump in with your questions or comments. But no, today, as you can imagine, all things Snapchat. So as much as it's about how do we find and engage our audiences online, let's really focus on how actually that works commercially for our businesses and how we can see the return on both the time we put into it and any cost we put into it as well. We're lucky to be joined by the Snap team today. So we've got Ruth here, we've got Simon, and we've got Tom. Just down the side, who I'm sure will be happy to answer any and all questions that we have as we go through today. But as always, I think it's always nice to get to know who's around the table. So let's go around, just quickly introduce ourselves. So just name, company. But just to give, I suppose, a bit of context to today's session as well, what's the first thing that comes to mind when you think of Snapchat? How do you view Snapchat? And the guys have promised not to be offended. So. Feel free to say whatever you like. So for me, and Ruth, I was saying this to you earlier, it's a platform that I'm not personally overly familiar with. My wife has a younger brother and sister who are 18 and 21, 22. And they live on it. They're not just using it in the sort of conventional sense. They use it instead of WhatsApp to message their friends. So it's, you WhatsApp them, you're not hearing back from them. So for me, that was a kind of a whole new way of looking at the platform. So I'm still getting my head around that a little bit. So I will go to my left.
So I'm Anna. Nice to meet you all from Pantry. We install and operate residential micro markets, which are kind of mini self-service stores 24/7 in apartment buildings. In terms of how I use Snapchat, I'll be honest, I feel really ancient for using Snapchat. I'm like, this is not age appropriate for me. But I'm sure that's not right. My younger sister uses it a lot and says to me that she actually loves it because of the fact that, you know, things don't stain there, they don't really stay, and it's very kind of in the moment, and she can just, you know, feel a lot safer about sharing things over there, which I think is really interesting point, and something that people are more and more kind of keen on doing on social media nowadays. So yeah.
I'm Tom, so I've been at Snap for about 4 years now, just over 4 years. I was saying to Simon, I can't believe it's been that long. I feel like one of the OGs in the advertising.
It was like 10 years.
I was going to say it's Snap and Advertise world.
I suppose so. It's certainly in the Snap world. I suppose we've been around with our products for about 5.5, 6 years. But we're saying we've got actually a really good retention rate, so it must be a good place to work. So yeah, I've been working in the emerging team for just over 4 years and working with a really broad range of different companies, all the way from Gymshark, Pangaea, Chili's Bottles, all the way through to products that have got companies who just sell individual products, whether it be earpods or back straighteners. So it's a really broad range of different companies that I work with, and I think Snap's amazing.
Hi, my name is Laura. I'm from Firkin Blenders. We are a coffee roastery based on East London. And yeah, I've been using Snapchat, I think, since the first time it was launched. But after that, I stopped it. And then I went to Instagram and TikTok. But at the moment, I only use Snapchat to get fun and use the filters and the voices that I love it. And my favorite was the filter with the breath. In the face, I was laughing for a while. Yeah, I actually enjoyed the app, but I haven't used it in a while, so I don't know what. I think you get news from the artists, and I was reading that you can advertise your work as well, but at the moment I don't know how to use it.
Yeah, we'll show you.
I'm Gabriel, the founder of Grounded. We make plant-based protein shakes without the crackers, our kind of like slogan. So they're all clean, plant-based, vegan. For me, Snapchat has always been high school and like kids, you know. And I don't know, there was a period in my life where I probably just completely missed it because I was young enough at one point to use Snapchat and I never did. But when I think about it, I think of 16-year-olds, you know, because I know that my younger brother, when he was 16, they were all like, it was like gossiping on Snapchat, and it was like everyone's relationship was on Snapchat. So I definitely think it's like a younger audience. I haven't got a single friend that uses it. Not in a bad way, just to know we're not 16, so tragically we're not 16. Tragically we're not 16, although I feel like it. I definitely skipped Snapchat and went straight to Instagram, but I think that just must have been age and situation.
So hi everyone, I'm Simon Jenkins. I lead our creative strategy team at Snap across the emerging business, and that's across the whole of EMEA. So I guess my job is to basically make sure that we give advertisers like yourself absolutely everything you need to be able to build effective creative on Snap, whether that's video or whether it's augmented reality, which we'll obviously talk a lot about here. And yeah, I guess thank you for your honesty about Snap and your approach to Snap. We've heard everything, you know, we'll always hear people saying it's aimed at younger people. I think we always have, I think I said to someone the other day, we owe a lot of nieces a lot of money. Everyone says, oh, my niece uses Snapchat every single day. So somewhere out there we need to pay a lot of nieces a lot of money. But yeah, lovely to be here, and looking forward to chatting to you all about AR and about performance and video and creative on Snap in general.
Simon, who's your guilty pleasure to follow?
On Snap?
Yeah, any embarrassing ones?
I did have a moment on stage in Dubai a couple of weeks ago where I was presenting to about 300 people, and I had my Snap open on the screen behind me, and I had something relatively inappropriate on my Discover feed, and I said, oh, I'm not really sure why that's there, and someone said, well, it's based on search history, which is completely true. It wasn't that bad, it was fine.
And at that point you said, I knew I shouldn't have used my niece's account.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, curse my niece. But I follow a lot of footballers on there. I'm a big Liverpool fan. I follow a couple of United players. That's pretty embarrassing. If my dad found out, he'd probably never speak to me again.
Very cool.
Hey, I'm Sean. I'm from Solar Rental. So we're a white label tech platform that lets fashion brands build a rental offer to let their customers rent clothes from them directly. I think I'm very much in the camp of I hadn't used Snapchat until my nephew showed it to me, and it's really, I was surprised that it moved on from basically being able to send inappropriate photos to him dressing up as a fruit and making stupid videos. So yeah, I think like the augmented reality part of it and how that's like evolved over the last few years has been super interesting. I'm really intrigued to know how it's being used now commercially.
Amazing. Hi everyone, I'm Ruth Arber, and I've worked at Snap for 4.5 years, so a long time as well. Previously I was running the retail and e-com vertical, so I was working with some of our biggest brands, helping them navigate the platform, and now I'm leading the UK team for our emerging business, so that's all the digital native, disruptive brands like yourselves. Yeah, it's lovely to meet you all, and looking forward to talking to you a bit more about Snapchat today.
Hi, I'm Som. I have a company called Mystery Vibe. We make medical devices for sexual health, menopause, ED, pain. Snapchat, so niece, exactly. So my niece is 17 and she loves it, and yeah, she uses that for her communication. I'm 40, I missed the boat. I've never had Snapchat. I think when I was at uni, Facebook started, so pretty bad. So I was in uni 2000. I think I was one of the first people in UK who were like, oh, Facebook is so cool. And I tried to get everyone on it. So, but then I think I missed the boat on Snapchat.
Cool. It's good to have you here. You're normally on the school run at this time, right?
I did, that's why I was there.
Good timing.
I can beat you. When I was at uni, we didn't have email.
I had one mail.
My name's Ben. I'm from electrifying.com. We are making electric car buying and owning simple. Most consumers are very confused about what it means to own and enjoy an electric car, whether it's questions about range or charging, etc. So our platform is there to do that. So Snapchat, I have a 19-year-old and a 16-year-old. Both of them are heavily on it. I'm banned from it. So yeah, I mean, I try and communicate through WhatsApp. If I get an answer within 24 hours, I'm very lucky. I think for us, certainly younger people are interested in having an electric car, whether it's not necessarily owning it, but subscribing to it, using it, renting it. So I think Snapchat potentially is an interesting marketing tool for us to reach that audience.
Hi everyone, I'm Vidam. I'm co-founder of an edtech startup called Up to Being Granary. Basically, we aim to develop tech skills of students aged 7 to 17, and we used Snapchat Dance Studio last summer. We are organizing summer camps for high schoolers as well. We taught them how to use Dance Studio to be able to create their own dances.
I love that.
So personally, I'm not into it, but I do have an account. I'm early 30s, so looking forward to learn more about how can we use it actually.
Nice.
And do you use it targeting the children that are learning, or is it more about targeting the parents to get?
Targeting children.
Okay. Cool.
Hi, I'm Georgia. I'm the Partnerships Manager at the Founding Network. Hope you're all familiar with the Founding Network. I'll explain it. Snapchat, I use Snapchat a lot, to be honest with you. I'd say the main thing I actually associate it with is the memories side of stuff, being able to look about what you've been doing 5 years from that, like back in the past. I mean, it's quite incredible kind of catching up with what you're actually doing on that day. So I'd say that's probably the way I utilise it the most.
I'm Hannah from the Athenian. I've only just started this week, so I'm still getting to grips with the company, but it's all Greek food, it's kind of street Greek food, it's modern, it's all about Athens, and it's Athens but in the UK. Snapchat, I used to live on it, I have to admit, but when obviously Instagram stories became a thing, that's kind of when it kind of just drifted to the back of my phone. It's still there, I still get loads of notifications from it, but I've just not ventured back on. So, but yeah, really interested in going back to it and seeing how we can utilise it as a business.
How many restaurants did you say you've got now roughly?
I think around 13, 15 in the UK. We've just launched in Madrid, and we're about to launch in UAE as well. So yeah, I think within a few months we'll have about 6 restaurants in Spain. So yeah, there's obviously lots of opportunities to do lots of things with Snapchat.
Cool. As I say, we've got a couple of big fans of yours in our team, so I'm sending them your way. Where are you in London?
So we're in Shoreditch, White City. Put me on the spot. I'm trying to remember them all. There's quite a few. But yeah, White City is a really big, a big restaurant. So it's really nice in there, really light and airy. So there's lots of space in there to go and eat and kind of chat with other people, I guess.
I love Greek food, something.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
It is really good.
So yeah, my name's Liam. I'm the founder of Bell. So we're an online fitness coach matching service. So sort of like Tinder, but for finding an online coach as opposed to a date. For us, like the big thing is sort of making it easy, making fitness more accessible. So finding a coach without sort of being taken in by any fitness influencer who's not qualified or spent a week on Love Island or just giving you some cookie cutter program. For me, I think I used to share a lot of similar views about Snapchat that's sort of already been shared, but in the last sort of few months have started to hear a lot more about the ad products and how good it is. It kind of, my perception of it now is almost as like the cooler upstart as opposed to like Facebook as the sort of social media advertiser. And you just remind me actually that stories started on Snapchat, which I totally forgot, and then there was that trend of everyone taking them. But yeah, I have not used it personally for quite some time as well. So, but I used to be on it a lot when I was in school and at the start of university too. So.
Nice.
You're pretty prominent on social, aren't you?
Yeah. So, personally, so I online coach as well. I didn't realise you can follow people on Snapchat.
Yeah. Yes.
So I think that's the thing. I need to start.
Yeah.
I think it is quite clear going around that there's a lot of similar views. A lot of people have been big fans of Snapchat and still have it there, but maybe lost touch a little bit with who the audience actually is. So it'd be great to dive into that and the new functionality, and particularly the ad side as well, which I've been hearing tons about. So it'd be great to dive into that. Let me reiterate, there is tons of food. So but Ruth, let's hand over to you. It'd be good just to get that, I guess, broader overview of where the platform is now.
Absolutely. Yeah, and everyone dive in. I thought it might be handy just to give you guys a bit of an overview about how Snapchat works as a platform. It sounds like some of you are familiar with it, have used it in the past, some of you not so much. And really I wanted to take it back and just explain like where the concept came from and why why Snapchat exists. So when it first launched, it had a really simple concept. You opened Snapchat, which opened to the camera, you took a picture with, you know, whatever you were doing at that moment, and then you sent it to your friends, and that picture disappeared. And for many of us that have grown up with other social media platforms and are used to, you know, communicating via text, it felt quite strange. But actually, what it was enabling was communication, but visual communication. And that's actually very, you know, a true and expressive way to communicate with users. And the ephemerality aspect of it, so the fact that that content disappeared, meant that it wasn't permanent. So I've heard some of you referencing that. And actually, if you think about today, for many of us that were on other platforms 10, 15 years ago, I'm sure we've all been there where we've had content pop up, or you realise that that content is just living forever. And the beauty of Snapchat is it doesn't. And that partnered with the fact that there's no social metrics, so you can't see how many, there's no shares, or there's no comments, there's no likes, so the content that you're putting out is not being judged on how well it's performing. And also the other key point is that with Snapchat, you know, we're essentially like a real friends platform. So if you want to add someone on Snap, you have to know who they are. So you need their username or you need their Snap code. You add them, they add you back. And that's a key difference, because on other platforms I might have hundreds, or if you're very popular, probably like yourself, thousands of connections. But on Snapchat, I probably only have 40 or 50 people that I know, you know, in day-to-day life. So what does that mean in terms of, like, I guess, the content that we're creating, or the way that we're using Snapchat as a platform? You know, I often show some nice examples of like holidays that I go on, like you were talking about, you know. So on other platforms I might pick 2 or 3 photos from, say, a ski holiday, for example, that sort of best summarise that trip. Whereas on Snapchat, I'm posting content throughout my day. You know, it tends to, it's a bit more unpolished, it's a bit funnier in its nature, because I'm sharing it with my friends that know me the best, and I'm not worried about, you know, how perfect it looks. So there's a really important point about Snapchat, that we're basically enabling people to be really authentic and show the real version of themselves with the people that they care about the most. And that's why I always say, you know, yes, there's a stories product on other platforms, but actually if you look at that stories content on one platform versus Snapchat, you will see that it feels quite different. And often when we're talking to brands about creative or creating content for Snapchat, that you follow that same nature, right? You keep it a bit playful, not so polished, and try and keep it true to the user experience. So still today, Snapchat at its core is a communication platform. I love that some of you, you know, have got kids or nieces that are using it, say that, you know, they're not on their main messaging app. And that's a really key difference, right, is that Snapchat at its heart is a messaging platform. And whilst they come to talk to their friends, they're staying and spending time with content. So one of you talked about Discover, which is on the right-hand side of the app. And what's really unique about Discover is that it's a closed network of publishers that are creating content for Snapchatters. And that is anyone from the likes of Cosmopolitan, Vogue, Channel 4, BBC. Some of them are creating sort of magazine type content, and some of them are creating shows. And those shows are built for our audience, Gen Z, so very fast paced, it's all vertical video, it's sound on. And we've started to release Snap Originals, which is our own types of shows. So we've got some big names. We've got some really amazing influencers and celebrities who are creating shows on Snapchat. And then the third reason that our users are so engaged and love our platform is augmented reality, and that we're going to be talking a lot about that today. So 70% of Snapchatters are playing with AR on our platform every single day, which is nuts. Probably for some of you, when we say AR, we say filters on Snap, you'll remember like vomiting rainbows and puppy dog ears, you know, and that's how it started. But now we can build amazing, beautiful 3D models of cars where you can literally step into the car and view all the different aspects of it. We've built beautiful handbags for the best, you know, brands Gucci, Burberry, etc. And the area that I think is most interesting is moving into sort of the shoppable AR or the try-on space. So now you can try on shoes in AR, you can try bags on. We're moving into clothing and actually seeing how that looks. And we think this is such a massive opportunity there, and it's moving really, really quickly. And I've been working with a lot of retail brands to sort of launch and scale their AR strategy. And finally, just a bit on our audience, because I think that's one of the most common themes that I'm hearing in the room. And one other stat that a lot of brands find really helpful is a lot of our users are unique to the platform. So there's some data by Annie, and it shows the percentage of Snapchatters that are not reachable on any other social media platforms on any given day. And there's at least 25% of our audience that you can't reach on other platforms. And the reason that's important for you guys, right, is that there's a net new audience for you to engage with. And then the final point I'd make is that, from an advertising perspective, in terms of products that you can use to actually reach those audiences, Snapchat is a full funnel platform. So we have capabilities all the way up from driving brand awareness, increasing product consideration, all the way through to conversion. Platform is actually very cost effective. We're not as competitive as other better known platforms, and we have released a whole host of different performance products like pixels and mobile measurement and dynamic ads. It's actually a very effective performance media channel. I'm happy to talk about that in a bit more detail. I'll just stop there and take any questions, and Simon shortly will be talking to you in a bit more detail about the opportunity around augmented reality. But if you have any questions about the platform and audience, we'd love to answer them.
Perfect. Just, I guess, John, I've got a question straight off the bat, and I'm sure a number of people are wondering. It's always has been such an organic platform, and you mentioned it's friends, chatting to friends, having very honest, raw conversations, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
How can we as founders and small brand leaders join that in an authentic way, if you like?
I don't mind taking that from a creative point of view. I think one of the things that I always say to brands is that a lot of people have mentioned Instagram stories, and the most common route to start advertising on Snap is by taking the creative that you've ran on Instagram stories, slapping it on Snap and hoping that it works. And more often than not, it doesn't work. And that's because they are two fundamentally different platforms, and it goes back to who's on there, the way in which you're talking to people. Instagram, again, without generalising too much, a lot of the things you see in stories are very polished. It'll be done using, motion design, whatever, properly rendered video that's 10 seconds. It's really concise. It's quite snappy, excuse the pun. The issue you see then when that comes to Snap is that if you're using Snap to consume what your friends have done, I'm seeing Ruth, drunk on a mountain skiing.
Not sure she
genuinely. I'm seeing, Tom walk a dog. I'm seeing friends like living in the moment, and then suddenly I see an ad that is really, really polished. There's a huge disparity between those two types of creative that I'm seeing. So there's no hard and fast rule, but the most common conversation I have with creative teams is try and build native to Snap. So don't think about building something that's completely polished. A lot of advertisers, big advertisers, are starting to shoot things on their phone. So they shoot it using the phone camera, therefore it doesn't have that 4K polish that you'll get from other methods. And actually build something that feels native to the platform. That's really difficult when people don't use Snap. So I think one thing that we do, and we can do this with as many of you as you like after this, is send you those key differences. Uber's a great example. Uber came to us 4 or 5 years ago, and I used to look after that account, and they would take basically their TVCs. They'd take a 30 or 60 second TV ad, cut that down to 10 seconds, and hope it would work. And actually what they saw, they took a bit of a risk and started shooting something on mobile. So there's a guy on Venice Beach who holds his phone, selfie camera, and says, if you want to get from A to B quicker than any other method, more cost effective, download Uber, swipe up to try now. That was way more effective in terms of people downloading, people taking their first ride, than a TVC was that would cost them potentially millions to build. And actually we saw it over Super Bowl, that people aren't spending huge amounts of budget building a Super Bowl ad. They're spending dollars, tens of dollars, maybe hundreds of dollars, working with influencers, working with brand ambassadors who shoot something on mobile. And because that's then served in the context of Snapchat, it feels native, it feels a bit more consumable than that polished TVC, it's more effective. People are more likely to take action, swipe up on it, buy clothes, download an app, whatever it might be, because it feels real, it feels a bit more native. And Ruth talks about authenticity. You know, bring that authenticity into your advertising as well. Build something that feels real and feels native to the platform.
Yeah, the only other bit I'd add as well is that the beauty of AR is you're putting the user, like they're experiencing the brand, you know, on their face, and then they're sharing it with their friends. So AR, like as a concept, as an ad format, is amazing, really. Because how many times do people want to, you know, play with the brand for that long? So that's another way to get really sort of, I guess, direct and one-to-one with the user base.
I've got a question. Maybe I'm jumping the gun here, but in terms of the AI, other than you being able to put it on yourself, is it also the same thing with kind of products, being able to pick something up or being able to enter a space virtually?
Absolutely, yeah, and that's why the possibilities are like endless. So often when we're working with brands, we're saying like, you know, what's the product? What do you want to achieve? Ultimately, what's the business goal that we're trying to drive? But yeah, you can do anything from, you know, we started building 3D product, but I guess an element of it as well is like, how do we keep the user engaged? So some of it might be it's gamified or it's educational, you know, they tap it and something happens. Virtual stores have become very popular, especially through the pandemic when we couldn't go into stores anymore. So, and they're becoming very sophisticated. So you can literally walk into what we call a portal, which is basically fully immersive, like AR world, and you're moving the camera around. There's 3D product that you can tap on, it will open up, it will give you information. So, and there's complete flexibility with how complex that experience is. We do say actually as well, like some of the most simple experiences are most effective as well, we shouldn't forget that. But yeah, absolutely, so much opportunity and for customization, it's huge.
I think the one word that we focus on as a creative team and the one word that we try and instill in events like this is utility. So every brand, and I challenge any brand to say, well, we can't use AR, there's no use case for us. But utility is really, really important. And we used to build fun, big experiences. We still do, but I think that focus on utility, there is a use case for AR for every single brand, regardless of size, regardless of product type, regardless of B2B, B2C. The most common brief that we have, and again, this is a conversation we were having a few minutes ago, is brands approach us and say, the brief is, we want to do AR. That's their brief. They've been to an event like this, they've seen a use case, they've seen a competitor use it, they've seen their kids play with augmented reality, 15 minutes at any one time, and they come to us and say, we want to do AR. Some brands say, we've got this product and this is what we want to do. Is this possible through the camera? And very often it is. But that open brief of we just want to explore AR, some people in my team love that brief. Some people hate it because they want to be led down a certain path. But I think for everyone in this room, that starting point of we just want to explore AR is really exciting. It's really fun. And all we can do is say, no, we can't do that, or we can try X, Y, Z. Like, we love to be challenged. I work very closely with the camera engineering team. So if someone says, we want the Snapchat camera to recognize a car, and we want to remove that car, and instead of a car, we want to put a tree there. And this is a brand that I'm working with at the moment. That was their brief. We want to get rid of all the cars as you walk down the street and replace the car with a tree. That isn't something that I can go, yeah, I'm pretty sure we can do that. But I can speak to the engineering team and they can say, yeah, we can build machine learning that recognises cars and replaces it with trees. And that idea of coming to us and challenging us is super exciting.
Just on that brief front end, and again, so many of the guys in the room today and our network more broadly will have to brief, whether it's coming to you directly or if they have an agency, they'll have to brief them, or even if it's just a founder briefing their marketing team.
Yeah.
What do you think the right level of brief is? Because there's we want to do it and it's very broad, but also they can put together a 5-pager that chokes out any creativity. And so I guess it's a bit of a fine balance between the two.
I think that the way the conversation, with brands kind of goes generally is like, we can often show you, and Simon's brought some amazing examples for you guys to see, just the breadth of opportunity, all the different types of experiences you can build. But as Simon was alluding to, I think the main point is that AR is just a format. So in exactly the same way you would use video or you'd use static images, that's the way you've got to think of AR. So a brief would be the same way you would brief for any campaign. It's like, this is an awareness campaign, this is what we're trying to shift, or actually this is a conversion campaign, we're trying to drive sales, and AR really can deliver throughout the funnel now. One of the sort of biggest barriers, I guess, was the cost of building those assets. It used to be expensive to do it, but now we've made it way more cost effective. So you were talking about Lens Studio. That's a piece of software that we use to build AR experiences, and it's completely free. So any of you guys can actually download it today and build AR. So if you've got in-house teams that are design teams or anyone that's familiar with those types of assets, they can actually build AR experiences for you completely for free, and you can launch them, in a few hours. So
what was it called?
Lens Studio. Yeah. So if you search, Lens Studio, you'll be able to download it, and we release templates. That's like an open marketplace that anyone that's building on the platform can release. So one of the areas that's becoming really scalable is beauty, because we've got templates now for like lipstick, mascara. You just plug in the colour catalogue and the lens is ready to go. So it's becoming way easier to build and scale AR than it has been previously.
I mean, we can talk pretty candidly around this table that has always been the issue. People thinking the barriers to entry with AR, when we used to focus on case studies done by big movie studios or some of the biggest fashion brands, because that was where the work was coming from, and that was where the high craft campaigns were coming from. But actually that idea of simplicity, that idea of utility is far more exciting. And that idea of, I work with a brand that made teeth aligners, and they're like 70% of their marketing spend goes through Snap, because people augmenting perfect teeth onto their mouths and showing that utility of the product and having a slider that says 1 month, 2 months, 3 months and their teeth getting straighter is far more effective than any video campaign, any copy they could write. And actually that's not going to win a Cannes Lion, right? It's not something that I go home and go, God, I'm the most creative guy that has ever lived. It's just something that's really simple. It was built in about 3 days. It was built by a freelancer who downloaded Lens Studio. And that idea of simplicity and actually using AR as an effective channel is far more of what we do compared to 3 or 4 years ago, when we would look at that high craft, huge innovative campaigns, building 3D stores, these immersive worlds. That stuff still happens, but it's more often the case that we're having conversations around utility, simplicity, and use cases for AR.
I tell you what seems quite refreshing is there's sort of two ends of it. There's the AR where you can sort of dive in and make a real product and make it impactful. But then, and I'm sure around this table everyone's thinking about cost, about time available, this, that and the other. Sounds like the more organic side of it as well. You can do relatively quickly, cheaply, easily. So what's the right balance between quality and quantity of the organic side of things?
In terms of content being pushed out, one point on that. So we only released sort of an organic offering for brands about a year ago, so it's still relatively new. Actually, when we first came to market, you could advertise on the platform without having a brand page, and that's because we were configuring a lot of the platform and how it's set up. So today you can set up a brand profile where you can push content out. People can follow you and subscribe to follow that content, but you can also be bumped up that discover feed. So and that now, so we call them public profiles for brands. So that is actually going to become a real central part of Snapchat. So you can host AR experiences on there. So if you had built a number of different lenses, they can be hosted on the page. We've released, or I think we're still in beta testing for Snap Store. So if you want to link your products to that brand profile, people can actually purchase, and they'll get driven to your site to purchase, and then we're going to be releasing native checkout capabilities. Everything's going to be centralised here. And then I think in terms of like quality of content, because we get asked about this a lot. I always say, like, if you're producing content about the social media channels, like, yes, in an ideal world you'd be creating for Snap, but just get the content on the platform and then just start to play around. The more time that you guys spend in Snapchat, like looking at other content, looking at other brands, the more you're going to get, understand the type of content that users want to see. I would say, again, talking to Snapchat's nature, it's less about the 100% polish. I think it's about it having utility, being fun, being playful, and you guys sort of testing and seeing what works on the platform, because it is very different to the other platforms out there.
I think one build on that is use us as a creative team as well. The creative team within Snap was built on the ethos of we never want creative to be a blocker, whether it's for any of you in the room, whether it's for big global creative teams. We never want creative to be a blocker on Snap, and we speak in events like this, we speak in trade shows all around the world and talk about how creative Snapchat is as a platform. It would be remiss of us then not to follow up and have a very open creative team. The majority of our day today is spent working with brands like yourself who will send us some video content and say, is this going to work? Like, is this snappy enough? We launched this on Instagram. Do you think it will be good for us? And actually that creative, that loop of feedback and that openness with the creative team I think is really, really important. Other platforms, the first question they'll ask is, how much are you spending? Like, if you want to speak to our creative team, how much are you spending? And although of course we have a very commercially minded creative team and we look at revenue opportunities, I think it's really important that we work with brands like yourself to build effective creative, to show you best practice, to introduce you to augmented reality, to break down that barrier, to democratize what we do with AR. And build that foundation for you then to go away and have successful campaigns, as opposed to being like, good luck, we'll see you in a month when it all goes wrong. I think it's really important to have that creative conversation.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point actually. We pride ourselves in working in a very consultative fashion. So whether it's from a creative standpoint or whether it's making sure you're set up for success from day one in terms of the formats that you're using or the targeting strategy that you're using, we want to work with brands for. We want to become part of your evergreen, your always-on strategy. We don't want to work with you for a short period of time and find it doesn't work. We want to set up for success and make sure that we're working with you guys for a really long period of time and helping you grow and see success. And I think that's one of the things that we're really proud of, and one of the ways we differentiate ourselves. And I think it's something that's driven our success, particularly over the last 3 years. Regularly I'll speak to companies and they can't believe the support that they get from us. So it's something that we.
In terms of targeting a relevant audience,
yes.
How do you guys get the information to know that we're targeting the right people?
Yeah, good question. So we've got a number of lifestyle categories that are built on how users are engaging on the platform. So obviously, as I mentioned with Discover, we can build basically interest groups on the type of content that they are consuming, spending time with. We don't ask for as much information on you as a user as other platforms. You just need an email address to sign up, and that's it, isn't it? So we don't know, where you live, what school you went to, etc. But we do look for other signals. So we often get asked this with gender. So gender, we calculate it based on your name and say. So Bitmoji is a Snapchat own product. I don't know if you guys know that. So most Snapchat users have a Bitmoji, which is sort of a digital version of themselves. We'll know from the Bitmoji what gender they are, so we can scrape information that way. And actually it asks for date of birth, doesn't it? Yeah, so we know how old they are as well. And then in terms of targeting, and targeting is actually very sophisticated. So like I said, you can do interest targeting, but through the pixel we know anyone that's visited your website in the last 30 days. We can build lookalikes of people that have visited specific pages. If we're plugged into your app, we can track all of those interactions and we can look for similar consumers. So actually the targeting from a performance perspective can be very granular and very effective in driving the action you want to see.
Based on some of the content that user's looking at as well, for you in the automotive industry, if I'm following or subscribed to other publishers like that, you can obviously see that signal that Simon is a fan of automotive. He's reading articles about auto or sport or lifestyle, beauty, whatever. That's pretty strong signals being sent back as well.
Do you see any difference in how different user groups are consuming AR? Or you talked about those two segments.
Yeah.
The Snap population before. Is there a difference in how people interact with it?
So it's a really good question. I think one of the things that I always go back to is one of our head of product guys in the US spoke about this on stage a couple of years ago, and there is a couple of features within the camera that we were just about to get rid of. So if you take a picture through the camera, you can swipe across and add what's called a filter. A lot of people think that's a lens, but lens is AR. Filter is sort of a static layer that's contextualized on top of the picture. And you can look at the current weather in your location. So it will say Oxfordshire 5 degrees, and we were seeing that loads of people were using that, but they weren't taking a picture, they weren't taking a snap, they weren't sending it to friends. So we were just about to get rid of it. And actually what we saw was the millions of people that were using that every single day were using it to get the weather report in their area, right? They weren't taking it as a communication piece to then send to their friends. And we're starting to see the same thing in AR. So a lot of people, if there's a clothing brand that has given you the opportunity to try on a bucket hat, a top and some shoes, a lot of people will play with the lens, and we can tell you your average play time is 35 seconds, whatever it might be. But actually the shares weren't very big. A lot of the people that were trying on those shoes weren't taking a snap and weren't sending it to their friends. But then we can layer on the performance data and we go, but actually a huge percentage of people that tried on those shoes didn't share it with a friend, but they did go on to buy those shoes. Or likewise, we can show you loads of people shared this. There was obviously discussion, the engagement rate was huge, the share rate was huge, but actually sales weren't that big. So we can look at that from a creative point of view and said, okay, consideration was there, and that friendship, sharing, advice, what do you think of these new clothes is there, but actually the path to conversion maybe wasn't as easy as it should have been. Or a lot of times, when we spoke about this before, we do a clothing try on, and the share rate's really big. Thank you. The share rate's really big, but the performance data isn't there, and that's because we realise it's out of stock. So people are sending it to their friends saying, "What do you think of these new Nike sneakers?" They go through to buy it, and actually their size isn't there, so they can't convert. And we're starting to see a lot more of that data. So you can almost build it out into two groups, and we can recognise users who are more likely to play with augmented reality and prioritise serving a lens in front of them. But I mean, when I joined Snap nearly 4 years ago, you would buy AR for a 24-hour period, right? So someone would buy a lens and it would exist on Snap for 24 hours. No one around this table wants to invest a lot of money just for a 24-hour buy, right? They want to build AR with a freelancer or with a partner and have it live potentially forever. And like Ruth said, you can do that through your brand profile page, but also I work with a ton of brands. As we build the lens, we build what's called a Snap code, which is a Snap branded QR code, and that can then live on things like this, which gets sent out with every single product. So send your burger, you can then activate a lens using Snapchat and turn your face into a slice of pizza, and you can get a code for next time you want to order. So that longevity of AR, it's crazy that people used to buy AR for a 24-hour period and just hope for the best, right? It's Saturday better than Friday. But now you can build a lens and you can say, I want to reach 18 to 24-year-old females in London with this AR experience. And you can do that. And that wasn't there 4 years ago. And that is now exists, and it is bought in the same way that video is bought.
Very cool. Simon, I know you've got a bit more detail to share with us on AR. It'd be great to, it's clearly a real
it's very difficult to talk about AR without showing you some examples. And I just have to stand there and go, trust me, it's really cool. So I'm going to trip everyone up if I pull this out.
This is the most dangerous point to do this.
Yeah, exactly, covered in beads.
Just call out as well, like two of the verticals that have been sort of quickest to adopt has been CPG, FMCG space. So I talked a bit about beauty earlier, but many of the both big and small new beauty brands, very quick and easy for them to build beauty AR experiences. And then the retail space. So a lot of the footwear brands that you guys, sports footwear brands that you probably know, they've been very, very quick to adopt. They run AR pretty much with every big launch campaign. Obviously, it makes a lot of sense if it's footwear. It's been a try-on area for us. It's been sort of the easiest to build. And yeah, we have examples literally from any and every type of brand. So I think, for each of you, when we follow up, we can give you some examples. And actually, one I wanted to reference is for you with the gym workout sort of space. I've seen a lens, I can't remember which brand it's from, but I'll send it to you as follow up. I think it was Nike, where they actually did a workout in AR. So the user flips the camera and puts it down, and it was giving you different workout instructions, and you could follow along. And we were able to use like body tracking technology, so it can pick up your movement, and then it can move you on. So
I've just done one with the yoga app.
Have you?
It tells you, using an algorithm, shows you which pose to get into, and until you're in that pose, it won't move on to the next exercise. Again, we're using, I won't talk about it too much, but we're using voice activation in lenses now, because we know that if we're telling you to put your phone there and you can try on full, hat, clothing, top, jeans and shoes, you're not going to be able to take a snap of yourself. No one's got arms long enough, sadly, that you can say take a snap or next outfit, and we can do things with Farfetch where you can swipe to go onto the next look, or Mulberry with the handbag. And this yoga brand is an online it's an app-based yoga tutorial system where once you get into that pose, it will say you've nailed that pose, do you want to move on to the next exercise? And you say yes, and it'll move on, and it'll show you the pose to get into. So that idea of using the camera out of hand, I think, is an area that we're massively exploring at the moment. We're so used to building experiences for someone doing this, then we started building experiences through the world camera, as we call it. But that idea of propping your phone up and doing something with a friend, or getting into a pose, or doing exercises, or you may have seen what launched this week, and again, the idea of utility in AR. The film that won Best Picture at the Oscars last week, all about the deaf community, we built a lens that teaches you sign language. So it will say the lens that we built teaches you to spell your name. So it knows that my name's Simon, so it will show me using iconography the hand gestures that I need to spell my name. And then as I do an S, it will come up with the S and move on to the next thing. So that idea of utility in AR, that's the perfect example of how, 3 years ago, no one would approach us and be like, can we teach someone sign language through the camera? Those conversations didn't happen, but actually we can teach an awful lot through the camera now. It's a really interesting area.
With that workout example, how do you take that, as in I'm showing you how to do this exercise, and take that person from there to be oh no, I actually have a service for you that isn't, obviously for us, our services, we help you find that coach. The coach is the one that actually teaches you those exercises. So was it Nike you said? Obviously they would have had some product and it'd be interesting to see that example.
100%. So all of the AR that we build can be shoppable and can be linked to where you want to drive the user to, and that shoppable experience is kind of different, but at a basic level you have a call to action button that appears along throughout the AR experience where the user can tap through, and that could drive through to a content page where then they can search for, see different coaches that they might want to work with, or it's driving through to a web page where and we're driving them to download the app, whatever action you want to drive. All of those AR experiences can link to that. And again, like I was talking about, where AR is a format or an asset, I guess it's what story do we want to tell to Snapchatters about your product? Maybe it's initially we're trying to get them familiar with the brand. And I do want to reiterate as well that AR is a huge opportunity, but the bread and butter of our platform is video. That's where you're able to reach the most amount of Snapchatters, and it's really cost effective. So we would always say launch your first campaigns on Snap with video, drive awareness of the brand, and then if there's a specific message or an idea or something that we need to explain to that audience, then we can come up with concepts and ideas to communicate that via AR. But everything we do is shoppable. You can build that experience. It sits on your public profile. It then becomes searchable across Snap organically. So there's really sort of a big infrastructure and lots of different ways that they can access that. But I always say remember the storytelling piece. It's really important on Snap.
On the AR piece at the moment, it's quite been focused around building brand awareness, selling an actual physical product. We talked about it a bit earlier, but how much opportunity is there to actually monetize the AR experience itself, either through a digital product or parts of the AR experience that are paid only experiences that are brands doing that?
In terms of selling those AR products that they're building themselves.
Exactly. Or selling the ability to use this AR to do something interesting.
So I think that's with NFTs and stuff like that's where everything's heading. For now, all we do is we provide the platform and the tools in order to be able to build it. So you guys could build AR on Lens Studio. That becomes an asset. You can use it across any platform that you want. Obviously, the AR that we've built on the platform is free for the users to use and to access. So it's not necessarily, we don't have any sort of like paid for capability in Snapchat itself, but that doesn't mean that we can't help support that model. So we have worked with brands who have built NFTs, and then we've built basically an AR version of the NFT on Snapchat to help launch that product and drive awareness of that NFT sale. So there is lots of ways for us to link through to it. But yeah, in terms of actually monetizing AR for brands on Snap, it's not, and it's a free product for our users to engage with, right?
We're working with a lot of R&D departments of certain clothing brands at the moment that, for example, if a football shirt retailer wants to design a new Premier League kit for one of their teams, at the moment they'd have to they'd have to build the prototype, they'd have to send that to a fan base, they'd have to get product trial, they'd have to do focus groups. They could just build an AR version of that shirt, give it to a certain 18 to 24-year-old blokes in a certain city and get them to try it on and get feedback that way. And that's a far cheaper way than going to manufacturer and building 10,000 or producing 10,000. And we're doing that with quite big brands who will build like a Snapchat-only exclusive drop. Supreme is the perfect example of that. They'll build something that's digital only and see what the reaction is, right? It's very rare at the moment that a car brand will just say, build a 3D render of the car, unless they say, we want to focus on the specifics of the wheel options or the charging time or the range. And again, we were talking about this before, that a lot of the time the AR experiences we build are now with a specific USP in mind. So if Ford came to us and said, we want to build a 3D render of the Mustang Mach-E, but we're really proud of the range, it can do 320 miles off a single charge, that would be the bit of the brief that we focus on. Anyone can build a 3D render of a car, it's genuinely quite an easy thing to do. But they might say creatively, how can we show that it charges in 40 minutes to a range of 320? We'll then have a slider that the user pushes up and gets to 20 minutes and it shows 50% charge or a battery at the top, or the colour of the car might come in. There's really creative ways, and we're trying to move away from just doing AR for the sake of doing AR and bringing that idea of utility into it. In fact, the example I spoke about just earlier was that antihistamine thing. A company approached us and said, we want to show that this spray that you can use up your nose reduces the aesthetic effects of hay fever, so the red nose, the watery eyes, whatever. So rather than just building something where the user sort of taps or opens their mouth and a spray goes up your nose and suddenly the red disappeared, we integrated with real-time data that will only serve the lens in Sweden, which is the market that this brand operates in, when the pollen count is above a certain level. So that idea of utility, there's certain Coke products that will only advertise when the weather reaches 25 degrees, and that idea of bringing utility into it and getting rid of the wastage and really focusing the idea on something quite unique. So when the pollen count reaches a certain level, that lens will be served to people in a certain city where the pollen count's high, and it will show the effects. So we're getting people at the right time. They're dedicating their attention to an AR experience at a time when they really, contextually really need it. And that's, I think, that additional layer of creativity that we're starting to see.
We are slowly running out of time here, and I know there's a ton to dive into. So I don't know if anyone has any specific questions about their businesses. Feel free to be selfish with this time and ask anything directly.
Tom, I know you've got to jump.
Yeah, I was going to say just very quickly, firstly, that I've got to shoot. I'm on holiday today. If I'm much later, my wife might not talk to me all weekend, so I'm going to have to go in a minute. But firstly, thank you all for your time. Really appreciate it. My role at Snap is to work with emerging brands and help them activate really effectively on Snap. So please do reach out to me with any questions. I'd be delighted to help. We've spoken about the product and how it's developed over the last 4-5 years or so. And I think we're now at a point where we're incredibly proud of the fact that we're seeing really good performance results, full funnel results for our advertisers. I'd love to talk about some of those examples, in depth with you, perhaps at another time, and things that are relevant for your brands in particularly. But I think please do reach out. I'd be delighted to help work with you guys and come up with strategies which are relevant and specific for your brands. As I said, we work in a very consultative fashion. So how we work with one company is going to be very, very different to how we work with another company, and we try and tailor it to make sure we're driving the results that you need. So yeah, please do reach out and lean on us.
Thank you very much. And we will connect you all as well, so feel free to ask any questions afterwards. I guess just to finish off with, for those obviously going around, there are a number of people that sort of lost touch with the platform a little bit.
Yeah.
What are some key good first steps for getting back into it in terms of getting profile live again, and how do we start?
I mean, the number one thing I'd say, if you all want to download Snap today and just have a play around with it, because I think the more you familiarise yourself, sometimes when we're talking about a lot of these formats, they're so different to what we see on other platforms, it can be a bit hard to get your head around. So download it, have a look at, or if your kids won't let you on it, you can use it on my phone before you go. But have a look at the content, have a look at the type of content that people are using, get familiar with it. Next step after that, I would say, even from an organic perspective, if you guys wanted to start setting up a public profile, we will follow up with some information on how you do that. You can very easily set up your organic profile on Snap and start pushing content, experimenting with that. And then if you want to start doing some testing from a paid perspective, Tom and the rest of us will be here to support and give you, help explain how you can do that. As I said, we always, say start with our video products, Snap ads, high reach, really low CPM, you can swipe up to any location. We can track all sales off the back of it. So start with something like that. We'll help guide you and see, once you're seeing the results that you want to see, we can start branching out and testing some of the other formats on the platform.
We have time? Yeah. I've got one quite specific to my business. So basically what we do is we install mini markets that are completely self-service, unmanned in communal areas of residential buildings. And one of the questions we get asked a lot when we're pitching to potential clients is, where exactly in my building would you fit? And how would it look? Like, would it work well with the aesthetics of my building? Like, does it look like a pop-up card or something? And one thing that we do now is we've got a 3D rendering of the micro market, which we're able to show, in a picture to them. Oh no, this is how it looks like.
Yes.
But actually, it would be great to be able to allow them to visualize it in their space and be able to say it's always usually occupying a single wall, but basically then being able to point the camera at that wall and see kind of the market tailored to that space or something like that. How difficult is it to achieve that? And how expensive?
If you've already got the 3D render, you can use that to build it, or either build another version in Lens Studio or potentially work with a partner who can convert it for you into AR. I would say that building the 3D render is like the hardest bit. So if you've already got it, it's actually very simple to use. You might have seen one of the examples Simon was showing you. On the far left, there was a furniture brand.
Yeah, I saw the chair on top.
Yeah.
Famous Swedish furniture.
Okay, very well known one, yeah. So, and actually how it works is that it's actually much easier for us to do because you're not putting anything on the user, right? So once they flip into the real world, you're just that 3D AR product or however it looks is in their world, and they can literally, you can move the item like this and they can actually place it like in their kitchen. That's actually would be, that's very
it's a piece of technology called LiDAR, which is really geeky, really techy, but essentially rather than the camera just seeing flat images in the world, we can see where a floor meets a wall, we can see where the sky meets a building. So, we were talking about this before, I can work with an airline to show a plane, going through the sky and going behind a building because the camera can recognise that depth. So you can, it's called masking and perspective, but you can say, we want this to stick to that wall. We don't want to put it on the floor because that will show the product in the wrong way. And obviously a lot of brand teams are really protective of where their brand appears through the camera. But actually us saying that we can mask something to a wall or, to a foot or whatever it might be is incredibly accurate now.
And what I'd say actually for some of you with your product, whether it's the electric cars or a version of the kitchen or even a coffee product or even yours with the supplements, like once you've got that initial product built, you can use that for as long as that product is around, right? And actually doing simple stuff like if there's different colours or different versions of that single product, very easy for us to create 4 or 5 different colourways for it, for example. And that AR experience, you have that AR asset for as long as you want to have it. So I would think about what ways can you use AR as an asset that can live on or live across multiple different platforms. So you're not having to, because building it is completely different to what you normally build it. But yeah, that sort of use case is perfect for.
That's great, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
That's actually really, really helpful because it's one of the top questions that we ask when we start pitching to people, and I think it's great to be able to show them in their space how it would look like and how it would fit.
I always think anything, like I've been renovating my flat and I'm like, if I buy a dining table and I don't like it, how the hell am I going to get it back, So I just think AR for stuff like that is just, I wish it was kind of, all fun, exactly. So I can see it in my space. That's all I want to do is be able to visualise it and see how it looks.
Really, really cool.
Yeah, I think the education piece, I think for probably a lot of your brands is really important. So like with electric cars, it's like what stuff can they learn about an electric car that's different, like the range and all these elements we were talking about, or with supplements and shakes. It's like people, I have no patience with like reading the product detail on product pages, but if there's something interactive where I tap it and it's giving me that information, it's actually really informative. You're landing that information in a really unique way.
Very cool. So I think today has really changed some of our minds as to who's actually on the platform, what the capabilities are, as well as what the basic capabilities are, the main functions of the platform. I feel like we could have gone on for another couple of hours. So the good news is we do have another session later in the year, so we'll let you know when that's locked in. I think we'll have to allow more time for that one to really dig into it. But following this, we will send around the high-level notes and the top liners from this and connect you all so you can continue any conversations at all.
Yes.
I'm sure, Ruth, Simon, I'm sure you'll be happy to answer any questions.
Absolutely.
Give people tips and hints on what to do. But now, just thank you massively to the two of you for sharing with us. So, thank you.